Hey podcast listeners, my guest this week is professional race car driver Stefan Rzadzinski. The 25-year-old from Edmonton began driving go-karts competitively at only 8 years old and has since raced everything from a Nissan Micra, which is the lowest priced car on the market, to an F1 rocket ship on wheels. This week's episode was a little bit different. We recorded live on Facebook, so the pacing and the energy may seem a touch more frenetic than usual. Make sure to follow Stefan on Facebook to see the full-length video, and you can find his name and his page by spelling it Stefan, last name Rzadzinski. Without further ado, I hope you all enjoy this discussion with Stefan. Rzadzinski. I practice that name a lot. Stefan was nice enough to join me here on City of Champions podcast. He's got a exciting career, one that's had his grip since you were 8 years old, right?
Yeah, that's when I started racing, so it's been a journey.
And we'll get into sort of all that backstory, but tell us about the recent trip you just got back from.
Yeah, so I just got back from Sebring, Florida, where I did the first rounds of the 2018 Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. Okay, in layman's terms, and just so everyone is understanding of what this kind of is about, is I know nothing about racing, so I reached out to Stefan about finding out, I want to learn more about this industry, as I do in City of Champions podcast. I'm just curious. I'm on a one-man mission to get to know everyone in Edmonton. Yeah. So I'm starting off with the people who do really cool things, and you're one of them. So what was that race circuit involving?
So it's the Porsche GT3 Cup Canada. It's one of the top series in Canada, I would say. Super competitive, top level drivers. We had a race in Sebring, Florida. The rest of our season is in Canada, as the name might suggest.
Okay, so they just have the one in Florida?
We had the one race where it was a crossover between the U.S. series and the Canadian series. Okay. So that was the first round of the season in March. Weather's a little bit better down in Florida for racing.
I bet.
Racing Porsches. So from that, we did a first round, and then the next round is not till May at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park just outside Toronto.
Okay.
So it's my rookie season in the series. I didn't drive the car until the practice day before the race day, so really? Kind of a trial by fire, which for the people that do know me is nothing really new. But
had you driven that kind of car before though?
No,
never.
No, never the Porsche. I drove one time a couple generation previous Porsche once on a. That was it.
On the street or on a track?
On the track. So I've driven, but I didn't have much time in anything like that, so it's definitely pretty new for me.
Okay, so that's one question I had is, how different is it driving a car on a track versus, obviously I'm not talking about like a street car, but like if you ever got your hands on like a Ferrari or a Porsche or a Lambo, like in the street, like what are you doing differently there?
I guess it's just a completely different world. I think as soon as you take anything to the circuit, you realize everything's backwards, right? Yeah. So the level of what you're doing and your goal of keeping momentum and pushing a car to the limits, you just can't safely do on the streets in any way. Right. So do
you have to reel that in at all?
I think it's so different that it almost doesn't even correlate for me. Okay. Like I'm actually, it sounds boring, but it's like I'm not a guy with a lot of speeding tickets. It's like, I don't know, I'm fairly boring on the streets. It's not,
because you can't afford to get your license taken and you don't have a job.
There is that. Yeah. Which is also it's just not. It's not the same, right? Right. It's so different. It's like, it's like me going to the golf course, and I'm not a golfer at all, and being thinking I'm Tiger Woods. It's like there's no Rory McIlroy, whoever's kind of up top. There's just no. My game, the game they're playing and I'm playing are not the same. Right. Fair enough. It's not even the same sport. So yeah, it's a very different. They're very different thing.
So rewind the clock. How do you at 8 years old all of a sudden get into this? Like, is it a case of you're going to a birthday party with your buddies and you're going go-karting and you're like, hey, I could do this as a career? Or is it a family thing?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a family thing. And it was way before 8 years old, I think, the bug was instilled. I think it was... my earliest memories are of racing. Like just everything I can remember is waking up and watching Formula 1, IndyCar, Le Mans, anything like that. That stuff was
You're not sponsored by Red Bull.
Over on that street.
There you go.
So all of that stuff, it came really early. My dad loved racing.
Mm-hmm.
He did a little bit of amateur racing. He came from Poland, so he started by just getting involved in the local racing club, Northern Alberta Sports Car Club, which still exists today. He was wrenching on cars. He got to race a little bit. He kind of co-owned a race car, and then when I was born, he had a different race car. So he just tinkered around. He didn't race much after I was born, but it was the race car was always in the garage, and I was always fascinated by it.
Right.
And it was a family friend of ours who my dad raced with in the sports car club, who had a go-kart because his son was racing go-karts. And by that point, I was already hooked. My hero was Greg Moore. He was a Canadian racing driver. He tragically passed away, unfortunately, in 1999. So I was 6 years old. I was watching the race. That was my hero. That was that was the guy I looked up to.
Right.
When I was
so that didn't scare you away from the sport at all?
Probably did work the other way.
The other way?
Yeah, I think I was just like I don't know whether it was in his honor or what, but I really just wanted to do it more. I just loved everything about the sport, and we didn't know anything about it really as a family, but we loved it, and we got into go-karts, and kind of a long process since then.
Yeah, okay, so walk us through a little bit, like the Coles notes of that. So from the point in which you're watching this race at 6 years old, assuming you've probably been on a couple karts at this point.
Yeah,
putzing around.
I think we're in the west end of Edmonton right now, and I think there was a go-kart track, an indoor track that was open for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Probably because they let 3-year-old me on track.
Lost their license?
I don't think there was much safety going on, but I remember my dad, that was the first time I got in a car, was like 3 years old.
Casualty of war.
It's like, the good old days.
Right.
So, I just, from there, it was just getting in. We're local kart racers. My dreams were always like, I'm a race car driver, but you're just racing out in Southern Warburg. There's a go-kart track, which has actually been revitalized the last few years.
Yeah.
And then I went to Stratotech Park, which was a facility that was fantastic, owned by Dan Beath, out in Fort Saskatchewan, which was, I grew up on the north side of town, so it was only 15 minutes from home, so grew up karting there, ended up, some of my first jobs working there for Dan at the kart track, or one of my first jobs. I just was always all in on motorsports and was trying to find a way. I didn't really know how, but I had some good success in karts, and it was just the simplest way to put it is it's been like a lifelong obsession, you know, and I love it, and just nothing else. Yeah, nothing else.
So was it the infatuation with the vehicles themselves? Was it the competition side of it, or was it a little bit of both?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, racing high-performance cars.
Guys love cars, right?
Yeah. But I think when I was young, it was like, you looked up to the cars, and it was so, you were so thrilled by it. It was such the sound, the speed, everything was amazing. And then, but it was definitely the competition. I think naturally I'm super competitive.
Yeah.
So I think that side of it really drew me a lot to the sport, and the more I'm in it now, the more that side's what keeps me going. You don't want to, I love beautiful cars, and I love fantastic machinery, but fighting with the guys around you for the top spot, to me that's everything. It doesn't matter what we're racing. So I raced Nissan Micras for 3 years, and not the fastest car, cheapest MSRP car.
I was going to ask you about that. Okay, that's like Top Gear's reasonably priced.
Yeah,
car
exactly.
segment. So what's the theory behind that circuit where you race the lowest priced car on the market?
It was cost effective for a lot of people. So a lot of talent could find a way to race without the budgets that cost. A lot of things cost a lot more money to try and get even in the door. So it promoted a good, healthy competition, very close racing, because everyone has the same equipment, super tight.
Right.
And it just became, some super hard series to win races in. So, some of the best and most proud ones I've got are I remember winning that race, and it was took a lot out of me, mentally, because that was so hard. So, some people laugh and say, oh, well, it's not, it's not the Porsches I'm racing this year.
Right.
But, full respect to all those guys in the Nissan Micra Cup and anywhere. There's good guys everywhere you go. I think you realize that as you get into the sport.
So is it almost as exciting because it's still so close, right? Like, it's,
Yeah.
do you have more with the slower cars? Say, do you have more margin of error? Is it the same as?
But potentially a little bit more. Yes and no, because sometimes you make an error in one of those races, and if there's 5 cars stacked up behind you, you make one little error, and 5 cars go by you, and you went from first to 6th.
Right.
Whereas maybe in some of the faster cars, usually they're just not that close because just the way the races go, machinery gets spread out. Drivers kind of get separated a little bit. Whether it's equipment, whether it's drivers, it just doesn't stay as tight. So it's a bit different. It's just different. Each formula and category in motorsports is different. So I guess that's that's why I'm chatting with you. It's the sport is so vast in a lot of ways.
Right. Everyone just thinks race car driving, but there's just like 1,000,001 different ways to do that. Right.
Right. Which is good and bad. As someone who's like trying to make it in the sport, and I'm would love to compete for like a world championship one day. Would love to go beyond just the Canadian and North American scene one day. It would be a dream of mine. But I grew up with like road racing, and there's also oval track racing, which I did a little bit of.
Right.
There's drag racing, which I've never done.
Right.
There's also they're all racing, but they're all their own kind of different sports within it.
Right. So it's all like their own discipline. It's like martial arts would be like race car driving, and then there's judo, there's Muay Thai, there's jiu-jitsu. Okay.
And so the most popular, in my opinion, are obviously like Formula One is the biggest in the world. IndyCar is fairly popular in North America. NASCAR is probably like the most notorious North American motorsport, right? Culture and culture-wise and everything. So there's all sorts of different things, and I guess the road racing, the Formula One, IndyCar, sports car racing, which is what I'm doing now. Road racing, turning left and right, braking, accelerating. That's the stuff that that was what I always grew up with and loved. So so that's kind of the path I've been on, and that I want to stick to, and see where that goes.
So, do you remember your first competitive race?
I don't really remember my first competitive race. I was 8.
You're so young, you don't remember your first race.
It was just, I was having fun, and but it was, my first year was rough.
Okay.
Like, I remember we had
hit the tires on the outside too many times.
We had more of this, like, we had a go-kart we had borrowed, so it wasn't probably the best, but we didn't know any better, and we're just doing the best. But I remember all I remember in the first year was the track was so bumpy. Yeah. It was so rough that I, like, I grew up in like a pretty traditional, like, Eastern European family. Like, we're going to practice. Like, we're going to practice. And like, we're gonna do 20 laps. You're gonna go drive 20 laps. Like, there's no, like, I remember coming up just sounds bad. I make my dad sound bad. But it's like, come on, just bruised up, like, and the go was 8 years old. Like,
hey man, that's the price you gotta pay if you want to play, right?
Yeah, the go-kart was, beat you up on the track like that. So it was, I remember it was like, I loved it, but it was like, there was definitely those moments where, like, did I really love this? And
right.
You remember, I learned like lessons in my first year where my dad doesn't remember it at all, but one of my lessons that I still take today is at 8. I remember, I wasn't really allowed like video games at home when I was a kid. So, but my buddy next door lent me like a Game Boy Color with Pokemon, and I was like, all right. Yeah, and I lost, it was a Saturday night and racing on Sunday, but I lost track of time, and I'm playing it in bed. I'm supposed to be sleeping. Dad walks in, and I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, nothing. And so he said, like, no, we're racing tomorrow. We're not going.
Really?
And we didn't go. Like he wasn't someone who would like back down from that. So
that taught you, I bet.
Yeah. But it was also probably like an early gut check of like, do you really want to do this? Yeah. And I hated not racing, so it sounds silly, but at 8 years old, that's like a pretty traumatic moment.
Dude, that's an important life lesson, right? Yeah. Like, that's teaching you the fundamentals of, hey, if you want to do this, there's X, Y, and Z you have to do first, right? And it's good because, like, he just, instead of like punishing you, he didn't apply something negative.
No,
right? He took away something positive.
Yeah, exactly. So whether he knew what he was doing or not, he probably doesn't remember that at all. I brought it up to him before. He's like, I don't remember doing that, but. That was my lesson in the first year, and the first race I probably remember is like my first podium. I remember, we went to the new track in Fort Saskatchewan. So it was the first race there, and there was a couple of the guys who were at the time quicker than me,
right?
And they weren't there because they were racing at the Canadian National Championships. Oh, okay. So they had a couple less guys in the field, and I finished on the podium, and I was like so happy that it was the best day ever. And in the next couple of years, turned that around. We won a couple of championships, so then I was, maybe I can actually do this.
So what were you racing at that point? Where you started moving up the
just
up the
in go-karts,
Go-karts,
it's what me and my dad, my parents could afford. Like they're not the fastest go-karts that we could race, just what was there for us. So they were, people would laugh almost like lawnmower engines, But we're still going 60 kilometers an hour.
I was going to say 60 kilometers an hour when you're that far from the ground is like, it seems pretty fast.
It is, and you learn all the fundamentals of the sport. So you're racing close, you're on the limit of the tire. So we did it very grassroots, but it was what it you could get away with it in those days. Actually, when I look at go-karting nowadays, it's a totally another world. It's very different. It's very professional now compared to the way we did it.
It's interesting because like that really wasn't that long ago, right? You're 24.
Yeah, 24, but it's changed a lot. Like I left go-karting I think in 2008, and it was already starting to become different. Where like we were being essentially, priced out of it. We couldn't afford too much, and then it was like, all right, well. It almost makes more sense. Like if we want to go race car driving, we better go learn how to drive race cars, because if we want to go at the high level in go karting, it's going to probably cost more money than it is to learn the new craft of racing, which is cars, which is what you want to do. So that was a kind of actually timing wise was perfect because I was turning 16. That's kind of when you can start racing cars.
So you don't need a license to race karts?
No, you have a karting license.
Okay, so that's a different thing.
Different thing.
How old do you have to be to get that?
I think when I was, it was 8. I don't know if it's still 8. I think it's around 8 right now.
So some type of certification process.
Yeah, you go through a school, and then you know what the flag colors are, and track goes this way. Certain things, there's safety things that they teach you, and then other than that, it's like go ahead, figure it out. It's not much different than a race license nowadays. If you really figure out, if you really want to go race cars, sometimes it's like, oh, that's all you need to do, really.
It's probably good that most people don't realize that, though.
Yeah, it's probably good. Yeah.
So then, what was your first jump into racing actual cars?
I did a racing course at Allenberg Racing School, which was based out of Calgary a few years back when I was 15, just for one day. And then I did a 2-day Formula Car test out in California in January when I was 16. It was kind of like my dad almost testing, like, can I do this or not?
Right.
So he sent a coach with me to kind of report back to him saying, like, are we gonna go in on this kid or not?
Right.
And I did well, but then it was up to me to really find the money to go racing, which I knew was going to be the case, because racing cars is not exactly, it's not cheap. And,
no.
And when you're a 16-year-old kid, like, you need to pay your way to show up on the grid. So my first season was with Brian Graham Racing in the Ontario Formula 4 Championship in 2009.
Did you move out to Ontario for that?
No, I lived here. I flew out, so there was about 6 weekends, and flew back and forth. And my time, most of my time, and it's funny because it hasn't changed that much today. It's just been fundraising money to try and do it. I was a 15-year-old kid. I remember emailing. I found just databases of companies out in Ontario, and I just emailed them. So I remember, I think the winter of 2008, 2009, before the season started in May, I think I sent 3,000 emails out to Alberta and Ontario companies, just being, hey, I'm a 16-year-old kid. I want to go racing. Do you want to sponsor my race car? I'm racing for this team. It's gonna be awesome. And I got my first sponsor from that. Did
you send them collateral, like a headshot?
I probably did. I wasn't. It wasn't anything fancy.
Right.
I think I sent a picture of the race car, which was of someone else driving it from the year before. And it was maybe it was a picture of my face, but it was mostly just an email. I was like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do.
Maybe they felt bad for you.
I probably the first person that invested in me was a guy named Larry Foster, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. But he he was a school teacher, and then he retired school teacher, and he was doing speed reading courses and a bunch of other things. And him and his wife Anne just responded to me saying, we'll sponsor. And I was like, really? Okay. So I was like, I can do this.
How much do you want to give me?
Yeah, it was pretty much, that's what it was. Right. At that age, it was this is the best day ever. It was the validation I needed to, I'm going racing. Right. Dad, I found a sponsor.
Yeah.
It was not nearly enough we needed for the full season, but it was the first person on board. And then, we had some other companies in Edmonton get on board. And so it was just this non-stop effort of trying to pull it together. And actually, that's been the backbone of how I started racing.
Right.
It's just like we didn't have the funds to do it, but with the support of some people, that's what got me off the ground.
So, do you think that having to work that hard for it makes you appreciate it more? Does it drive you more?
100%. I think I guess I'm 25 now. I think it's even more so now than then.
Yeah. Because the stakes are higher, right?
The stakes are higher, and it's. I think I just feel like I still have a lot to prove. So whether that's a chip on my shoulder, which I've been, I've probably been told a few times, but it's also like you have a better, I think now, maybe understanding of like appreciation for everything that goes into it, and how hard, like how far I guess you've come, and I guess how far you still want to go, and I guess how far you want to go is just based on ambition of what you want to do. But for me, that's high, and it's just a cool experience. There's, I guess, having the realization that like there's nothing else I'd rather work towards is cool. Because before, when you're young, you're in school, you're doing other things.
Right.
I did university. I worked at I worked a couple of like regular jobs after university.
Whoa, you did regular stuff?
I did regular stuff.
That's so strange.
I know, it was.
What did you work at? What were your other jobs?
I worked at a company called Sustainable for a little while.
Okay.
They had, I wouldn't call it a regular job, but we did like drift trike events, but they also had like a green carnival out in Fort McMurray. It was a really fascinating group of people. They're great guys. They're still in Edmonton doing really, really cool stuff.
Okay.
And I worked for Frontech, which is a software company, up till March, about a year ago.
Okay.
Once we did all sorts of development for corporate enterprises. So I was doing the marketing and sales and that side of things. But
interesting.
Yeah, it was, they're awesome businesses. But in the end, I just had to kind of make the decision myself. Like, all right, I'm going for this, and there's no turning back at this point. Like, I gotta go. Right.
So for people to understand where you are right now in your the point in your career, what are the big things that's happening? So there's Porsche circuit. There's how many more races in this season?
There's 10 more races in over 5 weekends.
Okay.
So it's it's a great championship. Obviously, races are on TSN, and there's some good coverage. It's a great series, great brand, to be associated with, and you're racing, amazing equipment.
Right. So you're under the Porsche brand?
Yeah. So I'm racing for actually the downtown Porsche team.
Oh, okay.
Out of Toronto. So team out of Toronto.
Yeah.
So they run a race team, and we compete against all the same cars. They're all Porsche cars racing against each other. So they're all Porsche GT3 Cup cars.
Are they exactly like tuned the same too, or does every team do like little tweaks?
We have our own
proprietary blend of wrench turns.
Yes, exactly. There's a limited checklist of things you can touch and mess with, but each team has their own setup, and so you work with your engineer. You kind of develop a set to what suits you and your comfort. Obviously, hopefully to be as fast as possible.
Right. How tuned into the technical side, the engineering aspect of it, are you? Like, how much do you know about the car versus your engineers?
I think that's something I've definitely worked on, especially in the last probably 2 years. Especially, I've really tried to hone in on that understanding. Would definitely say when I was younger, probably a little bit less tuned in on that side of things.
Yeah,
I think it was partially a blend of where you put your time and effort. Would I have learned a lot more about the basics of like a car and a race car if I was working in the garage? For sure. Would I have ever been able to do the level of racing that I was able to do so far if I was sitting in the garage? No, because I would have never reached out to those businesses. I would have never reached out to the people that helped take me to those levels. So it's kind of, it was a trade-off, and I've tried to spend a lot more time in the last few years to really hone in on that. So this year I'm working really closely with my engineer. We don't have a huge budget for testing, but we're doing our best to do as much as we can in terms of learning in this short limited time we have. So we have a very good relationship, and that side of things, it's hugely important, especially as you step up to higher levels. Like, you realize maybe I was 18, 19 years old, you think like your talent's just going to take you there. You're like, I'm faster than anybody, and I can drive it harder than anybody. And then you realize, like, okay, everyone here can drive it really hard. And then I was like, when you start looking at it, like, that guy doesn't have to drive as hard, but it's still faster. And you're like, oh, like, there's something different here. So, there's some of those realizations, probably at a younger age we were a bit naive, which totally, I totally was.
You got to have that confidence, though, to continue with it, right?
For sure. And the willingness to learn that side of it, right? And so I think a lot of people get turned off. And so it's the weird thing, because I think I'm kind of, I've bounced around a lot in motorsports. I've raced a prototype car. Last year I raced Race of Champions. Did a race in Korea with the Alice BX team, which was an incredible experience. I've raced in Nissan Micras. I've raced open wheel cars. I did the whole open wheel ladder to IndyCar backwards, which everyone kind of laughs at me for.
Yeah.
It was a
okay. Explain that, because again.
So it's like as if I started in the AHL and then I went to the WHL and then I went to like the AJHL.
Okay,
like,
so why did you do that?
So that's I make it sound terrible when I say that, but why did I do that? I was 18 years old and I didn't know any better. I was emailing the lady who was in charge of the general manager of the Edmonton Indy at the time, and I was racing cars and I was doing stuff, just at a lower level. Right. And I said, hey, I really want to be in the event. Are there any support races? So, the opening acts. So there's IndyCar, which is the big headliner, and there was Indy Lights, and then there was a few other steps below that. That year there was no, other than Indy Lights, which is like the top level before IndyCar, there was no other steps below that racing at the event in Edmonton. And then she kind of told me, she's like, we're going to get you an Indy Lights ride. After some time discussion, and I was like, are you kidding me? I'd never driven a car with more than a race car with more than 150 horsepower. Right. Nothing with like downforce or like even like slick tires. I'd never driven.
And what was the step up? What are these Indy Lights at?
They were 450 horsepower V8s, full downforce slicks. It was so out of my element in terms of like experience. Right. I just hadn't done it. Not that I couldn't do it, but it was a lot. So I did the one weekend here in Edmonton, which was an amazing experience because it kind of solidified me, and personally, I think as like the Edmonton Indy kid, right? Which helped me then fundraise money for the next year, where I tried to do the step just below that, which was Star Mazda, who was coming to Edmonton in the following year. I raised a bunch of money where I raised half the season, so I didn't do a full season. Just didn't have enough money again, but I did half a season, and I raced in Edmonton, and then we lost the Indy, which was a big blow for me. Yeah, definitely. Kind of got a little bit lost. This team I was with had an opening in the series just below that, so that would be kind of like completing the wrong backwards.
So it all makes sense.
Yeah, where I run 3/4 of a season and then I run out of money because of a few accidents. So, and things really kind of changed after that. Losing the race, I got, I think personally, a little bit lost of how am I going to do this? Just fundraising money. I just didn't know where to really start. And so I did some stuff in some NASCAR Canadian Tire Series stuff, or it was the NASCAR Pinty Series now. And then I was, fairly lost, and I got into did one recent weekend of the Nissan Micro Cup. And then I had a sponsor or a guy I was racing with who said, hey, you want to drive the next race at the Montreal Grand Prix, which was, to me, the whole reason I was racing the Micro Cup was at least they're at the Grand Prix, with Formula One. So he sponsored my ride for that second event of the season, and I won the race. So then I stayed there with my partner for years. So it's been a weird
twisty, turny road. So I wanted to ask you then, what separates a good driver from a bad driver? What separates the good drivers from the great drivers?
Good drivers from the great drivers. I think there's, in each category, I think everyone kind of figures out, you try and figure out what it takes to succeed, because it's usually the fine little details in the category that make the difference between that top step and maybe the top 5 or top 10. There's a lot of good drivers, and then I think finding the most out of that last little bit within your car and your crew. So it's very much being able to have a good relationship, I think, with your team, obviously being able to take it to the limit, but also be able to develop the car in a way that suits you, where you can push it to that limit just a little bit farther, or the comfort zone just a bit farther. So it's the tiniest of details, I think, that you see. Or
no, but I mean tactically, what better eyesight, quicker reflexes, more patience, more concentration, performance enhancing drugs,
right? Yeah. It's interesting. It's a weird sport in that sense, where I think it's a huge mental sport.
Of course,
it's a huge. I think, I'm a believer in the reflexes and everything, and all that stuff is relevant, and you can train it all day long. And we do, and you see, if you watch like IndyCar drivers or Formula 1 drivers or any of us, can train, you're like, all right, they're training hard.
Right.
But then there's still nothing like showing up in the race car. Because like, I don't care, you can have like the most fit guy and then he can still be lost in the car. He has the best reflexes, the best everything, the fastest, the best endurance. But if he's not able to like communicate well with the team and be like on it the whole time, it's like it doesn't matter. You can be the best of all that, and then you don't have it. So, it's kind of. I mean, if you're looking at, I guess Conrad David's kind of phenom, right? But okay, I guess he is the fastest guy. So you're like, all right, well, he's the fastest. But it's like he's so much more than that, right? Like it's everything that comes with it. I guess probably Wayne Gretzky was. He wasn't the biggest, the fastest. So it was just like his vision, his ability to know what's going on, when to turn on a lap. In racing, it's like when to turn in a lap for qualifying.
Right.
Managing the pace. I think it's become so much more of like the experience and understanding of I guess who you are as a driver and what package you have to work with, and then optimizing that as best as possible.
Right. Okay. Well,
so that's a very vague answer to your question. Like, what is the one thing?
But I know. I mean, I get it. It must be challenging because if it weren't, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. If it was easy.
What's your off-season, like? What's your out-of-car training look like? Like, what's your like workout routine or?
Yeah, I mean, I stay. I definitely work on staying fit as much as possible.
Yeah, you look like you're in good shape.
Thanks.
But like, do you do anything specific? Like more endurance training?
Probably more endurance training. I think. In the type of motorsports, I think motorsports in general, there's a few places where strength is like is still a factor, but in a lot of places it's endurance.
Right.
So like your high heart rates for extended periods of time. So it just takes a huge toll on your body. So hydration and stuff is a big thing in motorsports.
Right.
Because you're just hot. Like a lot of times you're just stuck and it's
really
hot.
You must just lose a lot of weight in some of those longer races.
Tons, and you sweat a ton. Like I when I was racing in Korea, it was 30 degrees, super humid. I got out of the car, my drinks bottle wasn't working. It was a 45-minute race, and I on the cool down lap, like I thought I was gonna pass out. Like,
and there's no AC in these things.
No, there's no AC. It was about I think 65 Celsius, 65 Celsius in the car. And
65 Celsius?
Yeah, it was like and you're wearing your gear. And it's just like,
man,
it's hot.
So there's a big mental aspect to it.
Yeah, like,
for sure.
Like you make a mistake, you're in the wall. You make a mistake, the guy behind against you. You make a mistake, you could hurt yourself.
Right.
Like it's one of the. I mean,
what's the worst crash you've ever been in?
I had a bad weekend. I had one bad weekend where I launched over my teammate one time in Toronto, the Toronto Indy.
What were you driving?
Formula 2000 car, so an open wheel Formula car.
Okay.
I launched and got some pretty good air, and then didn't backflip thankfully, but it was not a good accident. And then when 2 days later I got taken out by another guy that he chucked it in, and I didn't see him there, and he clipped my rear corner. I hit the wall. And,
yeah. Did you break anything?
No, so I've been lucky. Like I think likely undiagnosed concussion.
You mean you just got your bell wrong?
Yeah, I got messed up. Like nothing. I went. So I've been lucky.
Smack that thing pretty. Do you have to get a new helmet? Because if you have to get a new helmet, the chances are you got a concussion.
I've never had to get a new helmet. Luckily, never by an incident.
Right.
So
this isn't your racing helmet, is it?
No, this is the one I just used for the Race of Champions. So it's only been for that one event, and I got it signed by all the guys at that event.
So we got to talk Race of Champions. Yeah. I didn't know what that was until I looked it up on YouTube. That race is insane.
Yeah,
it's like it looks like a motocross race indoors.
It is. It's like a stadium circuit. They think it's like the All-Star game for motorsports. So we talked about earlier all these different kinds of motorsports, and it's really the showcase for all the top guys. It's a great, fantastic event, a lot of fun, and I got voted in there last year thanks to so many.
Dude, that's insane. You got to tell that story.
Yeah, it was. I said it, some of my friends who have heard the story will laugh because they've heard it so many times. Yeah. But it's been I was sitting in my office.
Fuck them, they can turn it off.
Exactly. There you go. So I
sorry guys, I don't mean that. Keep watching.
The sitting in my office at like 4 p.m. on a Wednesday, and then they said, you've been selected for this, and I'd entered online, like, you didn't think anything of it. You're like, yeah.
Right.
Someone on Facebook told me to enter this contest. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Did it. Didn't think about it. Got the email, like, holy crap, like, I have a chance to get voted into this event. So but there was like an IndyCar driver who I was up against, and some other like media members who had like much bigger followings than I had. But I was like, I'm gonna win this thing.
They didn't want it as bad as you.
It definitely did not, and it was like I was thinking about it earlier today. I think like genuinely like part of me, the reason I went so all in on that, on like I contacted every person I knew, like every single person that's ever talked to me. If you were in my phone from some point in my life, like I messaged you,
right?
And I didn't care if I annoyed you or not. I was like, I need this, like I need your help, and if you can help me, like get on board or like. Don't talk to me. Like right. I'm doing this.
Hey Rick, it's Stefan from grade 3. What up, man? Yeah. Like, how are you?
That was pretty much like my phone.
No, I don't need money. I just need your vote.
Yeah. My phone. Like true story. My phone broke. Like I had to go get a new phone because like couldn't send so many messages.
Oh, it just crashed.
It just like the systems were like thousands of messages and over days and but it, people got behind me and I was so thankful for that. But it was I think the reason why I went so all in was like I felt like I just had something to prove, and I knew I could do it. Like if I was given that chance, I knew I'm not going to be an idiot. I'm not going to, I'm not going to let those people down, and I know I can make myself and the people around me proud. So I was very bullish on making sure that I was the guy, and they left a little bit of room for interpretation. Whether if you had enough votes, like whether that was enough, because they may have still made a judge decision to pick someone else. So I was like, I better crush everybody.
Right, like second is way in
yeah. So which we did, like Edmonton and Canada and whoever and everyone else who got on board. Like
you got the premier on board. You got the two mayors in Alberta.
It was crazy. I was just laughing. I was like, is this happening?
You must have just been on a high. Like people must think I know what I'm doing, but I really don't.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I was I just didn't sleep. That was it. Like I remember I had like. There was crews of people who like were online at certain times who were like on board with me for those 4.5 days. So like these people who kind of were like in my life randomly for those days who were like my support system.
Yeah, like a headquarters.
Like no, it was like all virtual, right? Like they weren't like because I was on the computer, so they were trying to promote, and it was just like people I didn't know. It was people I didn't know.
Dude, that's sweet.
It was so cool. I was so lucky, and so I'm so thankful for those people to get me there because once I was there, then it was like all right, like all that's done, just like. Do the job, and it was super cool. So, won 2 of the 3 races, which was nice, and I think it was really a real turning point for me, like mentally being like, all right, like
I belong.
I belong, and also just like you gotta like, just don't be tiptoeing. Just go in, just do it, and like and because what do you have to lose? And so there's a lot of factors that go in on that, but generally a big reason is this is my family. Like they put a lot for me to have these opportunities in the sport, and I've got a little brother with autism, which I talk about a lot, and where it's like he's definitely my biggest fan, and he, I look at him and he's like he's likely never gonna be able to go after these things that I can. So it's like if I want to do this and if I'm trying, like why, like just go, just do it, right? So that was a big thing for me. It was just like why not? Like the worst thing is that it doesn't work out, and I'm really not afraid of like failing in front of everyone. But it's like, what if we succeed? And that's the plan. It's like it's not really like I'm gonna find a way. So it's kind of like I'm at a point now where I feel like the conversation is more like get in or get out. Like
you got nothing to lose now, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So during the time down in Florida for Race of Champions, I heard a story. You got to tell this story about jumping in the limo with Sebastian Vettel. What went down there?
Yeah, so Sebastian Vettel, for those who don't know, if you're not a big race fan, he was a big deal. He's four-time world champion.
He's the number one F1 driver.
Yeah, like him and Lewis Hamilton are right now tied for the most world championships currently competing. So I'm just like I grew up watching it. This guy was like my favorite guy.
Right.
I remember like staying up.
It'd be like meeting Ovi or Crosby.
Yeah. If you're a hockey fan, it's like 100% that same thing. And the day before my race day, they were racing, but we were just going to show up and take an Uber there. And, not as early as everyone else. But of course, Seb's not as early as everyone else either. So he's got his own. I think it was a Maserati limo driver and everything. And so we just go to the lobby.
I see.
Yeah, Seb. Yeah, so
that's how you guys call each other. Seb. And are you Steph? Seb and Steph. Okay.
No, I'm the kid from Canada, I think. So we just talked to the people who were like organizers, and we're like, hey, like, is there cabs or something? Like, oh, like Seb's coming down. Maybe you'll jump in with him. And I was with my buddy Dennis, who's from town as well. And we're like that's it. They're like, yeah, like all right, like we'll let you handle it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, like they're like, hey Seb, do you mind if these guys they're going there anyway? And I said, yeah, no problem. So jumped in the car with the driver, Sebastian Vettel in the shotgun. I'm sitting back seat and with my buddy Dennis, and we're waiting for Sebastian or Pascal Verlaine, another Formula One driver.
Yeah.
And he was the last one in, and then all of a sudden we're driving to the stadium with Sebastian Vettel, 2 Formula One drivers.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting.
What did you ask him? Like, what did you say at that point?
I was fairly quiet. He kind of initiated the conversation. He was super friendly, super nice. He was asking, oh, so you're from Canada, right? Like, where from? And I said Edmonton, and he's like, where's that? And then he's like looking on phone on his Google. He's like, oh, that's
really far north.
He said it's really far. That's exactly what he said.
Farthest north city over 1 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so luckily, my buddy Dennis was saved me on that one because he'd done research on every driver before the event, like something that they were into that was not racing related, not to be like that guy.
Yeah.
So he's like, are you into skiing? And so I was like, yeah, I love skiing. So we started talking.
So how about Birkenstocks?
Yeah, it was this weird. So we ended up we had a conversation about skiing, heli skiing in Blue River, like Mike Viegel heli skiing, and that was like for 20 minutes we were just talking about heli skiing. And he was all like excited by it. Yeah. So
those guys appreciate that. Like they get asked so much about their career constantly, right?
And I didn't want to either because I know, I know this guy. Like, I'm there in the end as a. Like, there was a chance I could have gone up against him. Like, you don't want to be, like, the fanboy. I felt like that was the hard one.
Trash talked him. You're like, I hope I take you down, Seth.
I probably get more quiet than I would have liked.
Yeah.
But, nah, it was a great experience. He was a super cool dude.
That's wild.
Yeah, very, very gracious.
So let's jump in and see if we got any questions from the fans here. What does that say?
Hey, good memories.
Wow, such good memories.
I'm gonna avoid that one. Who inspired you in racing?
Talked about that a little
Talked about it a bit more. Yeah, that was Greg Moore. Talk about ROC. Yeah, we got that. Okay. If you could own any car in the world just to cruise or rip around in, what would it be?
That's a good question.
Since I'm racing Porsches now, I gotta say Porsche GT3. What company man?
Well, I think that's a good car. Well, okay, let's change that. What's your favorite?
What's like my dream car?
What's your favorite car you've ever driven off the track, or on the track too? Other than the Porsche GT, I'm gonna let you off the hook with that sponsorship there.
No, it's not a sponsorship either. But I generally think like the Porsche GT3 is an incredible track car. It's wild. I love the Ferrari 458. There's the McLarens are amazing. I've driven the 720 yet, but the 570
that's the newer one.
The new one, yeah. I drove the 570. It's a good car. So there's a lot of great cars. It's so hard to, it's so hard to pick the Audi R8's an amazing car.
Yeah,
they're all so good nowadays. They each have their own little like flair. The Lamborghini, the Huracan, the Aventador SV, there's some cool cars.
I drove one time in Jasper. What was the one before the 458? The 438?
430.
430?
Yeah. Probably 430, yeah.
Is that the Modena?
There may have been
430. Anyway,
or was it 388 maybe?
No.
That was an older. That's older.
It had, but okay. Anyway, it had the gated gear change.
Yeah.
And it was an old British dude from Edmonton, actually. I can't remember his name, but I asked him at the start of the weekend. It was a golf weekend. And I'm like, oh, whose car is it? And my dad's like, oh, it's that guy's.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, I hear you like my car. And I'm like, yeah, it's really awesome. He's like, oh, you should drive it before the weekend's up. I'm like, 20. I'm like, okay, sure, right? And then it's the Sunday, the last day, and I'm having lunch by myself. And he walks up. He's like, hey, Shane, I got to go, but do you want to drive the car really quick? I'm like, he came to find me to drive his Ferrari, right? Beautiful. So I'm like, yeah, of course. So we go out, and it's parked out front, and I get in, and he gets in the passenger seat, and he goes, okay, so the clutch is on the left, and the gas I'm like, whoa, I know how to drive a standard. And he's like, oh, okay, good. This will be easy then.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're going to let me drive your Ferrari without me knowing?
You're going to teach me to drive standard on your Ferrari.
Exactly.
That's the best. That guy's the nicest guy I've ever heard of.
Right. So I was like, all right, perfect. So anyway, I took it, the Jasper Park Lodge?
Yeah.
So I took it like down the road back to the highway and just like took it easy, right? And then he's like, all right, you better turn around. Like, I got to go pretty soon. So I turn it around. I'm like, do you mind if I open it up?
Yeah.
And he's like, by all means.
Yeah, go for
so just floored it, right? Just gave it as much as it had.
Yeah.
And he was so calm about it. I thought he was going to be like, holy shit, slow down, right?
Yeah.
So we just kind of hum back in, and he's like, man, I got to do that more often. He's like, I haven't opened it up like that in years. Right. And that was like my one shining moment of driving a really fast car for a very short time.
Yeah, I'm totally spoiled. I'm 100% it's
super jealous,
super spoiled, and I know I'm like very lucky. Like that's part of it where I'm just like I'm super grateful that I get to do that. Like my primary source of income now is coaching. Mm-hmm. So like I do a lot of driver coaching.
Oh, no way.
27. So and I help people go faster around the racetrack. So if they got a high performance car, I'll help them go quickly around the racetrack. Yeah. So a lot of times that involves me going quickly in their car before they get to do it and showing them how that happens.
That's a good setup. That's a really good setup.
So you were asking about off-season training and stuff. So actually, the track opening in BC, I've moved up there now, living in Osoyoos, BC.
Okay.
And it's a brand new, amazing facility called Area 27,
mm-hmm.
and I do a lot of coaching there. So even though I'm not driving and testing as much as I'd like to, for me it's a great way to stay like in that mentality of like optimizing speed, like finding performance advantages. So your brain's not switched off on that. So that's actually, I think for me in the last year at least, because last year's the first full year I did that, that helped me a lot in terms of just staying on the sport. A lot of times it's like otherwise you're kind of like, it's kind of like going to hockey practice without skates and being like, I'm going to practice hockey without actually being able to get on the ice.
Yeah, you've got to get those reps in.
Right, which in racing, it's hard to.
Right.
It's really, unless you've got a large budget, it's really hard to.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to just find any way you can to figure it out. And it's part of the driver's skill to show up and not take forever to figure the car out, learn the track. Like, that's the typical thing. Oh, you learn the track, learn the car. It's like, last weekend I didn't drive the track in 5 years. I'd never driven the race car. Like my race team wasn't sitting there waiting like, oh, like we're just going to give you a full day to figure this out and then we'll talk tomorrow. It was like, 10 minutes in, we're making changes on the car, being like, all right, like, did this help or not help? And you're like,
did you get any practice laps?
We just did we had two sessions of practice for the qualifying. So it's like, at that point, you're just trying to dial the car into how it feels comfortable for you, so that you can, in the end, take it to its limit.
Yeah. What do you even look for at that point? Like, are you just turning harder? Are you hitting the throttle harder? Like, what are the specifics there?
It's everything. It's how the car responds to like the weight transfer. Mm-hmm. So like the racing, in the end, for me, it's just like the 4 tires is your contact patch.
Yeah.
So you're trying to optimize speed along those 4 tires for the duration of the race. If you do that well, you win.
Right.
So how the car takes load on throttle, how the car brakes, how the car responds to steering inputs. Certain cars are very sensitive on turn-ins. Certain cars need a bit more.
Right.
Certain cars you need to trail brake in, which is like a technical term that, drive the car in with the brakes and then let off. So like there's all sorts of little things.
Right.
But you just need to figure them out really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, in my situation, because I've never had a lot of budget for testing. And I've just been forced into those situations. So, like, last year, my mantra was race everything. And I did. I raced a Formula car. I raced in Korea. I raced prototype cars. I raced the Nissan Micra. It was literally... And raced the Champions. It was literally everything. And I was just, like, trying to be like, all right, there's no... Just figure it out. Just figure it out. And then for me, I think it developed me as a driver, because you just learn to adapt really quickly. And it's everything. It's how does it respond to throttle? How does it respond to brake? Steering inputs. And in the end, like, are you taking the tire to the limit? In the end, car's a car. You can take it to the limit if you figure it out.
Right.
It's just about doing that as fast as possible.
So there's, in any car and track combination, there would always be an optimal line and speed, like, based on the limits of the car. There would always be, like, a maximal optimal, like, way to drive that track.
It's like, it varies, like, slightly. But, unless you're super into it, you're going to say, they're all taking the same line. And that's essentially right. Like, certain cars might take a slightly different line.
Right.
But that's once you're into, like, the fine details. In general, there's the best way around the track. So if you know the track, it kind of helps because you know, all right, this is where I need to be. Bumps here, avoid those. You know, stay away from that. Like
speed bumps over there. Don't hit those guys.
Potholes, which like exist on racetracks, believe it or not.
Potholes?
I mean, like we raced in Seabright, which is like World War II airfield, so it's not the smoothest track.
That's unbelievable. They don't like patch them up, or they
sometimes
do,
they do, but then they race cars, they literally rip up.
It's a lot of force. Yeah, I bet.
So it's part of it, man. It's part of learning and it's part of being a driver.
So I wanted to ask, what about VR when it comes to training? Is that a thing that's been implemented that would help?
I think it's starting. I think they're getting better. My buddy has a VR headset.
You need like the full simulator to actually get like what you get from the car, though, right?
Even then, they use it, and I think there's great. Like you can learn tracks. There's things you definitely can learn from the simulator and VR and all these things. There's just something about that feel that you lose, obviously. Like
right.
You've been in it, you crash the car in the VR, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't it's different when you're going into like at Sebring last week when you're driving the car for the first time and you're going into like turn 17, which is like a notoriously bumpy corner with no runoff. It's all walls around. Yeah. The corner is probably 160 kilometers an hour, and you're going over the bumps, and you're just like you're coming into there at 270 kilometers an hour. Like there's nothing. I don't care what you practice. Like there's nothing that prepares you for that like moment of like, all right, I'm actually doing like I'm committing. Right. Commit yourself to doing it until you actually just do it. So it's a great tool, and I think like in terms of simulation and data engineering, and there's a lot to be gained on it. But there's still that element that I don't think you'll ever replace, where it's like there's we all have self-preservation, and there's certain things that you turn off when you go racing. Like I bet for sure have to be like, because I
bet you hesitation can be a serious detriment, right?
Worst thing you do. Like you have to be very direct, very like decisive on any like move. If you try and pass a guy and then kind of think about it and back out halfway, usually that's when accidents happen.
Caught in the middle, right?
Yeah, it's just like you go for it or you don't.
Yeah. Same way normal driving too.
Yeah, very, very true. Yeah. Very true. If you start to think about it, it goes.
Okay, let's see if we got another question here.
All right,
scroll up. I got a bunch, but I want to give these guys a chance.
What was the experience of the Race of Champions? The World Champions. Everyone honestly treated me awesome. What are you up to this summer? Porsche GT3 Cup. I'm gonna just hammer through these.
Oh boy. Feel free to elaborate on any of them. What are the green ones? Oh, it's just
people are watching.
Wishing you great success. Wow, these are nice comments.
Yeah, thank you. My engineer, Razzle, we are dying to know what happened in Miami after Sebring. That's not important.
That's the dirt.
We went to bed early.
And you're over 21.
It was nice and calm.
Okay, if there's no more there.
No, talk about your biggest fan, my brother. Am I working on my promo, or do I have a crew working on this? I am working on this all alone. I had a little bit of help with a couple of videos that were put together recently, but in general, I've been doing that.
So if you're volunteering yourself, all good.
Right. If you I've actually thought about that a lot. It's like trying to...
Dude, just hire an intern.
Right.
Just go back to Nate, be like, look, I'm a successful... You were Nate, right? Or McEwen?
McEwen, yeah.
Go back to McEwen and just say, look, I'm a successful graduate and alumni of your program. Yeah. I'm doing interesting things, and I would provide a very unique work opportunity for one of your students. Yeah. Like, no one's going to ever get that job. Like, screw going to intern for, I don't know, some like random marketing company. Like, to get to be your intern would be pretty cool.
I guess I'm so like we're so tight on budget. Everything is trying to go to the race program that I'm trying to find a way to like make it all.
No, you don't pay
work.
interns.
Oh, you don't pay interns.
No.
Okay, well then.
No, that's the best part.
If somebody's out there that wants to help me,
but that's the thing. There's so many talented people, like specifically with videographers too. Like, if you go out there and you can source people who just want the opportunity to shoot cool stuff, right? I mean, maybe you have to cover like a little bit of their expenses, but you're not giving them a per diem or anything like that.
I honestly would love to get to the point where I'm able to do this as like a proper business where I have a bit of support and assistance, because I think building the brand and everything is crucial, and so that's the thing about motorsports. It's like you're your own brand, you're your own marketing, you're your own fundraising. It's like
you're an athlete, but also like an entrepreneur. 100%. It's a very much like an even split of those two.
if not like 70-30 in terms of the business side of it.
Yeah.
I would say like I probably relate to and learn more from my friends who are in business, just because that's kind of the similar things I guess I deal with. So for me, that's a really important part of what I do.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen any other way. With I don't get to get on the ice on the track if I don't have, I guess, like a budget supporting me, until you're maybe picked up by one of the big manufacturers, which is obviously like a huge gold mine, to work with the manufacturer, help them in the end sell a lot of cars,
right?
But also be able to go test properly and just help them with their agenda and their program. That's for sure a dream of mine.
So do you have a manager, an agent, like all those things? Are you you running all that yourself?
I'm like indie. It's like super, like I'm all independent.
Dude, that's amazing. So the spot is open.
Yeah.
Okay,
like for sure if there is a talented person out there then who wants to be like my agent.
Guarantee you, we're gonna find one. We're gonna work on this. So you live in Osoyoos now, you said?
Yes.
So how long are you in Edmonton for?
I'm in town for the week.
Just for the week?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for making the time for this. That's awesome.
This is day one in town. And it's like meeting 4 or 5.
Yeah,
it's been good.
And so what does your summer look like? You got the Porsche Cup, but like how many races per, like twice a weekend? You said 10.
Yeah,
10 races, 5 weekends.
Yes,
yeah,
that's correct.
And so when is that go until? And is it every weekend or is it every?
It's throughout. So I think we've got a round in May at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park outside Toronto.
Okay.
We've got a round in June at the Montreal Grand Prix. So if you're going to the Montreal Grand Prix, we'll be racing there.
I'm not, but thank you.
The Toronto Indy. Videographer.
Where's the closest one to Edmonton?
Fortunately, there's none close to Edmonton.
Come on.
Which is like it's just why like no one does this for Edmonton. Which is part of like, honestly, my whole life everyone's been like, this is a fun hobby, like good, or you'll do this for a bit and then you'll go and like do real life, and it's just like I'm like really determined at this point to be like, I'm gonna find a way, and I'd love to. Obviously, I'd love to bring more racing back here, but it's kind of like this weird challenge I have internally to be like, even though I'm not racing here, I think with the internet, with the opportunities, I guess, that we have now, like there's ways we can bring the sport to people. It doesn't matter where I'm racing in the end. So it and that's my goal. Like I'd love to bring racing to become relevant again. It's kind of like a bit of an outdated sport so far, and no offense to the older viewers, but it hasn't really.
They don't know how to use Facebook.
Yeah, right. Maybe not Instagram, the younger crowd. But
you still fly the Edmonton flag, right?
I fly the flag everywhere I go.
That article about you at the Race of Champions said like unknown Edmonton driver, which was awesome because it wasn't even Canadian or Alberta.
Yeah,
it was Edmonton driver. Like shocks the racing world.
Yeah, and I love that. Like I've
badass.
Fully owned the like underdog, like guy from nowhere. It's part of my story, and I but I have a lot to prove. I think that's like there's a lot that I wanted to accomplish and do, and where it's like people think like, oh, the Porsche Cup's like this is your end goal, this is it. Like, no, like I don't.
No,
I don't
just getting started, right?
Yeah, I just feel like I'm getting started, and I feel like last year I guess would have been the first year where I really fully went like back to being all in on it, because I had that time of kind of like, what am I doing? Like I'm supposed to get a real job in real life, and then I just. Oh yeah, I said
fuck real life and bailed.
Fuck it. Yeah, pretty much. So it's been interesting, but nothing I'd rather do.
So what's the next big step for you? Like what are your aim? Like so you want to win as many of these races in the Porsche Cup as possible. What would be like in the next 2 years? What would satisfy you in terms of goals that you've reached?
On the motorsports side, I think obviously moving beyond the GT3 Cup. That's maybe not as straightforward as it might look, whether if that means maybe tying with a manufacturer of some sort, so whether it's Porsche or someone else, that's something that's interesting to me.
And what does that mean? You just become a driver under their
banner, yeah. So wherever they would decide what races you go to and what direction you go, kind of. So you become under their banner. That would be really cool.
Right. Is there a concern when you do that they just sort of stockpile drivers like in the system and then don't actually give you sufficient opportunity
to show yourself
to go drive?
For sure, I think that there may be, but usually I think from what I've seen, most times they don't keep too many spares or reserves, or you're called in from an independent team. So that would be like a dream of mine to become like a factory driver of some sort, and like I'm personally very interested in what's happening in like the electric racing world. I went to Formula E in Hong Kong in December.
No way.
I'd love to get on the grid in Formula E somehow. That's so there's a lot of manufacturers there. So it's again, they've got their drivers, and it's very tough world to crack in. Like the politics of it are very difficult.
Right.
But
you play well in China and Japan. You do good over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of like. For me, I think there's part of it where it's like the harder it is, it's almost like more appealing to be like,
of course.
Well, like, yeah, or like if someone tells me I can't do it, it's like, yeah, well, like maybe not, maybe we'll find a way, right? So it's just, I think it's just that way at work. It's just like if it's more difficult, then I'm probably more inclined to fight for it and find a way to do it.
Yeah. It's a good outlook to have.
It helps. It's helped, and it's like it helped me put together this Porsche ride. It was a last minute deal. Came together, and I'm really thankful for the people. There's a couple Edmonton companies like Christensen Developments and Goldmark Diesel have been supporters of mine since I was a really young kid. But I've had support from all over the place. From Area 27. There's a brewery in Saskatchewan, Rebellion Brewing Company. So I'm a beer sponsor now, which is awesome.
For after the race.
For after the race, yes. Which I think is awesome. I hope we get to do some like cool promo stuff with them this year.
Yeah.
Got a Algical and a mortgage company, Canadian Mortgage Experts out of Vancouver. So
awesome.
It's been a range
no
of people.
stone unturned, right?
It's been awesome, and hopefully we have some more partnerships that turn out. But I'm kind of at that point where it's like get in or get out. We're doing this, and like I want to see how far we can take it.
Yeah. Talk about the what was it called, the Road to 24 or the Race to 24 that didn't end up happening.
Yeah, it was weird because it was kind of like all this hype. They were telling us like I checked in for my flight to
hold on, so quick backstory so people understand. Like, what was the
backstory for Race to 24? So it was a contest. 24 drivers from around the world were picked. We were all going to go for this reality TV show that was all online for Netflix and whatever. Then one of us was going to race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which is one of the biggest races in the world, and I was one of the 24 picked.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. It was one of those online things you enter, don't think about it, and all of a sudden you get an email. And then you're like, there's like, racing is like Hollywood. You're like, there's a lot of like crooked people for sure. So you're kind of always like guard up whenever anyone says, you're like, oh, we have this amazing opportunity.
Right,
you're like,
too good to be true.
Yeah. You're always like, no way.
Right.
No way. No chance.
Yeah.
So that was what it was initially. I was like, no, this doesn't sound right. But then all of a sudden, like, you got flight details, flights booked, like, and then on the day I was leaving, like, I checked into my flight, like, it's happening. Like the flights are paid. I've got it. Like, I'm like, it's real now. Like, it's actually real. And then they just, like, the producers, like, called and they're like, hey, like, don't get on that flight. I'm like, if my name is Thon, I'm getting on that flight. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm getting on that flight.
Right.
And then, but sure enough, like, all of a sudden, like, my tickets were gone, like, disappeared.
Man. That's so annoying.
And then the next day, the producers are like, yeah, like, the team's not responding to us. We'll let you know, but we're supposed to come on the weekend now. I'm like, okay. But in my head, I'm like, something's up, like, not good. And then we never heard again from anybody.
It just fell out. The bottom fell out.
Like, disappeared completely. Nothing, like, no news. So
what happened? Their sponsorship got dropped, and like, I watched the trailer.
It was something to do with money, realistically, if I'm honest. Like, money didn't come through somewhere, and they committed to a lot of stuff, because it was going to be an insane program if it went through the way.
I watched the trailer. It looked so cool.
It was a cool, and like where they were going to send us to Switzerland to do training camp, and then to Dubai, and then to Japan and Portugal, and I was like, all right, this is going to be awesome either way.
Something like that would be really big for the race world, right? Like,
I
to
think
give that all access sort of like, not campy reality TV, but like real look at, what happens, how it all goes down.
Yeah,
the training,
and I think this
and
is
the competition, and
that's part of what I'm, I guess, trying to share. I guess, like, I don't know if people actually like care about motorsports in the end, and like, but I'd rather talk to people who don't. Like, I think, like I mentioned, I relate more to the people who are just like, they're just striving for whatever it is that they're doing. That's like, that they're doing it on their own, or they're fighting for it, whether it's in business, whether it's like artists, whether it's whoever. Athletes, I can relate to that stuff. So I think it's super cool when, I guess, I meet people who are kind of doing something unique or different, and they've found a way to make it work on their own. That's not the traditional sense, because I've far in in Edmonton, I know my career is far from traditional, but even in the racing world, like my career is definitely not like the guy who's like taking the path and was scouted by McLaren at 12 years old. Like, that's not not my reality, but I'm not complaining about it. And you talk about motorsports, a big part of it's budget and money, and it's a tired story in the sport. So like in the end, my situation is my situation. I'm gonna try and make the most out of what we have.
Right.
For sure. If we had more money, if we had $100 million budget, I could do a lot of things. I could make sure that we're prepared to the very best to do it, whatever we're doing. Not the case, but it's not something like I'm not going to change circumstances. I could do my best to make my odds better, but like complaining and sulking, being like, oh, if it was like, big thing in motorsports, it was better back in the day. Tobacco money and
everyone says that for
everything. And it's like listening to it's like if someone keeps telling you like, oh, it was like Led Zeppelin's the best music in the 70s or 80s or whatever, and like you have to listen to that forever, like that's motorsports. And that there's a tired narrative there for me where it's like I'd like to bring like a new story to the sport. And like I think racing is still cool. I think it's one of the few things where it's like we're actually risking a lot. We're driving $250,000 missiles around the track and
that's a good way to put it.
and racing each other, like going head to head. It's not just like putzing around, and they're like, it's like there's real risk, there's real like we're really like putting a lot on the line here, and people don't even know the backstory of it. Whereas like, I think that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to, or at least like be interested in, and I just don't think we're telling our story very well, or not well enough. So I want like part of my mission is like, I obviously want to like go as far as I can in motorsports, but the other part of it is like I want to bring attention and awareness to what we're doing.
So what do you plan to do to raise that awareness? I mean, other than being successful from a non-traditional racing market, like, do you is there anything that you've got in the works? Any big stunts, publicity? Like,
I haven't done any like stunts or anything like that yet, or thought about it.
Jumping,
but
I mean like promote like PR.
I think I'd like to just do the better job of the storytelling side of it. I started a little bit the last little while. I'm trying to kind of social media platform. This is part of it, 100%. It's I'm trying to use the tools we have now to like what can we do with this? And if one or two people get interested in my story, every couple days, that's great. That helps me, and maybe that snowballs. I'm not a big fan of like pulling massive stunts or doing like something like cheesy in a way. But if it was cool, like I would definitely do it.
Well, you could like hack it too. You could be like, to raise awareness, you could be like, win a day in the car with Stefan, right? And then like take someone out for the day to teach them how to drive properly, right?
If a week in my brain, there's like 1,000 of those ideas that go on, so it's kind of like I need to temper them sometimes.
You need execution.
I mean, it's like execution, right? So it's
that's where that intern's going to come.
Right, exactly. It's going to do all that stuff for me.
I guess you got to reach out to someone in Osoyoos. So
so I've got a little bit of help.
The college out there.
I think just Okanagan in Kelowna is probably closest.
Shit. Okay, we're gonna work on that.
Yeah, so it's a bit. So UBC Okanagan, anyone over there? I don't think I have a big following from the UBC Okanagan.
Not yet. Not yet. Like that's such a good spot for racing, right? Like the summers are so beautiful.
Yeah, long
summers. People like to go out and do things, and like it's great to be on the lake, but like. If you have like a...
I remember being a kid being like, if I only had a real job here and I could like live here, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Still don't have a real job.
Not a real job, but like I'm doing racing stuff. Yeah. I'm looking at Okanagan, so for now at least I am. It's been good.
Awesome.
So plans for promotion, more stuff like this, more storytelling, try to do a better job, outreach. If I can collaborate with other people who are doing things, it's definitely interesting to me. Just anything I can do to kind of help... someone might get interested in the story.
Yeah, I think you're doing a pretty good job.
Do we have any other
questions there? Okay, here I got one for you.
Yeah.
Who's your go-to character in Mario Kart?
Toad.
Toad. Yes, Toad.
I don't know why.
Yeah, because he's just little and fast, right?
He's a fast guy. I don't know if he's actually faster, but I figured he was.
I always thought so too.
He's lighter.
Like, you got to think.
I was never Razzle.
No, he's a bad guy. What are do you get any like common misconceptions about your profession? Like, do people come with you with the same stupid question over and over? And if it's any question I've already asked you, feel free to say that.
It's the fastest you've ever gone.
I forgot that question. What is the fastest you've ever gone?
Well, they're on 300 kilometers an hour, but that's the number one question where you're like, because when you talk to anyone who's like in my sport, it's like it's about it's like what you do in the corners, right? Like that's what it's all about. It's like how like pushing the car to limit in the corners. The straightaway is like
anyone can hit the
you're just sitting there like it's like where you relax. You're like chilling, and you might be going 300 kilometers an hour, but you're just chilling. So that's one that you get asked a lot. Or like that they think you make like a ton of money because you're driving. Like I'm like I was driving my dad's hand-me-down car until like a few months ago. So it was like I was driving like a regular Jetta, like, and it's like this was
a good car.
It's a good car. Nothing wrong with it.
Like
the
Porsche brand.
No. It's in the family. I've been a company man my whole life.
What about the Fast and the Furious movies? Do those just like drive you nuts? Or
no, I find them really entertaining.
You can suspend that disbelief long enough to enjoy them.
I have to be in the right zone. If you're, it's not serious. Obviously, it's like you can keep shifting forever. So it's like, you know what I mean. But probably like I definitely have to be like a couple beers and it's like perfect.
all right.
Good time.
What time we got? 8:10. Okay, last chance for questions.
All right, is there any on your side?
No, these guys are just liking it. Oh wait, no, I do have one. This is a stupid question, but it's from Brando Thomas, and so I got to ask it. Is the need for speed a real thing?
Is the Need for Speed
a real thing?
Oh, it's a real thing.
Okay, and if so,
and
which
I played
it is.
Need for Speed games when I was a kid. That was like my game.
Those were great games. Which one was the best one? Number 3?
I think it was Need for Speed 2 was the first game I played.
Okay,
so I think that was like and then Need for Speed Underground. I got really good at that one.
Yeah, that one was cool too, where you could mod the cars and stuff. So lame. Okay, and if so, how much is too much? How much speed is too much? Never enough. Okay, that was from Scott Dodds. Scotty and Brando, I got your stupid questions. Anyone else there?
All right, we'll see. No, nothing. How just says that people get involved with local racing. Northern Alberta Sports Car Club if you're into cars, and or local track days. I think Track Junkies at Castro Raceway, and then go-karting is still the Edmonton and District Kart Racing Association, EDKRA, and that was where I got my start. Okay. So I got to shout out to the EDKRA.
So you can just go down there and like pay a fee and you can race? Or?
I think you have to have your own cart, but I'm sure like the people, I would suggest if you're interested, just go out there and like they're the nicest people in the world because they want people to join.
Right.
They'll help you get set up.
The funnel, getting people in.
Yeah. So they'll make sure that you can test the cart and get used to it.
Those are the people that need to step up their game for promotion of this sport, right? They need to bring people in the funnel.
For sure. It's tough. It's tough, and it's but it's such a great. Honestly, karting, like especially at a grassroots level, it's such a great sport. Like as a family sport, especially like you're learning a lot. Like you're competing, you're working with like, you know, with your family. Initially, like for me, it was like that's your team. Yeah. So there's all sorts of different things. I think that's
pretty cool. That's wholesome.
Yeah.
How long are those races? How long is the track, and how many laps?
In go-karting?
Yeah.
The tracks are about like 1 kilometer long.
Okay.
And races go between like 10 and 20 minutes. So and you'll have like practice sessions and qualifying and then your races.
So my question is, say it's like a 1K track and say there's like 10 laps, maybe 20 laps. How much would you beat me by, do you think? If we race? Do you think you would crush me by, like, would you lap me?
Yeah, multiple times.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's primarily because I'm heavier, right?
Yes, that's it.
That's the only reason?
How heavy are you?
I'm like 195 right now.
Yeah, that 30 pounds.
Okay. I think so too. But like all things considered, we'd be pretty close.
Pretty close, like just a couple laps maybe.
I remember racing like go-karts when you're younger and you just like think you're like, I could do this for a career. Like, I'm like, I would love to race cars professionally. But then you're a kid and you're like, just, you know, oh, what's next? You know?
I was the kid who, I literally remember, and like, they might watch this, but there was like, girls in elementary who would like
who missed out on you.
They totally missed out.
Yeah,
I had like my picture of my car that I put in the desk every day, and I put it out and I taped it to my desk every day, and like because they wouldn't let you leave it out, that I would like have to take it down every day, so I'd like retape it the next day.
Peel the tape off.
Like a poster of like.
Do you still have that car? That poster?
I think it was a Porsche actually. Yeah. Nice. So part of me when I signed with the Porsche team this year was like, you know, the kid me was just like, I'm just like laughing inside like. I'm racing Porsches, like for real. Yeah. Like it's crazy. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been really cool, and And I'm lucky to, honestly, I'm super lucky to do it. And I hope that...
I wouldn't say lucky, man. Like, honestly, like, you create your own destiny, right? Like, and you busted your ass and you stuck with it. So, like, that's the important thing.
And I just feel like I'm not even close to where I want to be yet, right?
So what's the pinnacle for you? Like, what would be the top accomplishment you think you could ever get to?
Winning a world championship. You know, in whatever car it is. I think FIA is like the world sanctioning body for motorsports. They set the world championships for the year. So right now it's like World Rallycross, Formula 1, Formula E, World Endurance Championship. So there's like 4 or 5 different options.
Okay.
And I think, you know, Formula E, World Endurance Championship, Formula 1, if I could somehow, you know, find a way into that world. You know, everyone was kind of like, kids are getting in there at 18, 19 years old now, so they think 25 is washed up, but you never know. Maybe at 30, I'm the guy who makes his Formula 1 debut. I don't know.
You got the experience, man.
Honestly, no, genuinely, like, competing for a world championship is that would be the dream of mine, for sure. Like, lining up with the Canadian flag, coming from Edmonton, and just be like, you know, I grew up in the north side of Edmonton, and like, showing up on a grid, racing for a world championship, that's the coolest thing.
That'd be badass. Are there any really successful, like, worldwide Canadian racers, or have there been in the past, like, who have been the best in the world? Yeah,
so, like, I guess Jacques Villeneuve was our only Canadian Formula 1 world champion. You know,
how long ago did he win?
He won in 1997.
It's
been
a while ago.
21 years now. His dad, Gilles Villeneuve, was like an icon, a Canadian icon. He kind of, you know, he paved the way for Canadian motorsports, and probably a lot of people fall in love with the sport because they just loved Gilles because he was so, like, charismatic and chaotic on the racetrack. Like, if you watch Gilles in other videos, it's just he's a madman on the track. We've had a lot of other good drivers that probably didn't have the opportunity. Greg Moore was potentially a world champion that passed away too soon. We've got some great guys in IndyCar now with James Hinchcliffe, Robert Wickens. You know, honestly, I think some of the guys I compete with in the Porsche GT3 Cup are some of the top guys that don't get the credit that they deserve. You know, there's my one buddy Scott Hargrove out of Vancouver. He's a young Canadian talent who's racing in a different sports car series called the Pirelli World Challenge with Porsche as well. You know, there's a lot of talent in Canadian motorsports that's just... It's frustrating that we all kind of get stuck, or there's a point where it feels like we don't progress. So, you know, props to the people who kind of get behind the drivers to help take them to that next level. It's not an easy feat, but you know, it's super cool. Super cool. We have a Canadian driver in F1, Lance Stroll.
Okay.
So, you know, there's some Canadian talent out there.
Good. Just waiting for you to come and blow them all away.
Right, exactly.
All right, buddy. Stefan, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, good luck in the rest of the season. What do you say? You say good luck, or like break a leg, or good luck?
Well, hopefully we don't need it, right? Hopefully we just go. We got it covered.
All right, tuning out. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you, podcast. Thanks for listening. Once again, guys, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Also, forgot to mention in the intro, make sure you follow Stefan on Instagram at RZAD Racing. RZAD RACING. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.